I went no contact with my Nigerian father following a lifetime of chronic non-contact sexual abuse that started when I was 16 and went up until my 40s. My name is Ikwo, and I've been a writer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, and many other multi-hyphenated things, but for now, I'm healing in public. In today's video, I want to talk about what happened in September 2024, the last time I saw my father, which drove me to go permanently no contact with him. If this is your first video in this series, you have to go back to the top to get the entire backstory of what happened when I was 16 and has continued happening for all of the decades since then. Trust me, it's worth the watch. I went temporarily no contact with my father in December 2023. That was the year I had been in cancer treatment, and on a family Zoom call, my father started airing his grievances about how I hadn't done ABC XYZ for him that year, and I literally hung up the Zoom and said, I cannot talk to that man right now. I have been in treatment this whole year. I'm exhausted and I need to rest. That's the first time I felt like I really took a deep breath in fresh air out from under the thumb of my father's oppression. He really had not been that helpful that year, and so I spent the 9 months from December 2023 to September 2024 basically just calming my nervous system down because I was really focused on long-term survival from breast cancer. I was reading a ton of books and just putting my life into perspective, trying to understand why I'd always felt this difficulty around my father, and what I've now come to understand was a toxic patriarchal family system. But to be honest, up until December 2023, I'd been grinning and bearing it around my dad for so many years that it was almost like waking from a long dream, or maybe you want to call it a nightmare, and coming to terms with the mistreatment that I had endured for so long. But when my eldest sister invited me to attend my nephew's 13th birthday party in Boston, Massachusetts, I jumped at the opportunity because I hadn't seen my family in a really long time, because in that 9 months I wasn't talking to my sisters that much either, because that toxic dynamic had wound its way through all of our lives. And when my sister invited me for the birthday party, I packed up my bags, which included a lot of layers. As you recall, I was always shrouding myself in layers anytime I was going to be around my dad, and she had told me that he was going to be spending the night at her house, where I was going to be spending the night too. We had a great time at the billiards lounge for my nephew's birthday party. My dad came, he brought his wife and my baby bro, and I hadn't seen them in a long time either. My little sisters came as well. And I kind of fell back into my role. You know, my father had expressed that he was really emotional to see me. He used to be a photographer in Lagos before he came to the States, so he gave me his camera to help take pictures and things like that, which is a role I usually played in the family, which is probably why I became a filmmaker. But I felt okay seeing him in the billiard lounge. Then we all retired to my sister's home in a suburb of Boston, and it started out fine. My father was on the ground floor, kind of like the basement where he was going to sleep, and I thought he was just going to turn in for the night. And so I was on the main floor with the rest of the family and our friends that had come to spend the night after the event, and we were all talking, laughing, having a good time, having some wine, and I was chilling because I thought my dad was going to bed, and at some point I heard his footsteps up the stairs from the ground floor to come to the first floor, and I kind of froze because I was still wearing the outfit I had been wearing to the party, which was a little bit form-fitting. I had not changed into my layers yet. And he sat down in the dining room, which is adjacent to the living room. He's kind of sitting in a seat opposite where I was sitting on the couch. The lights were down a little bit low because it was nighttime, and I don't know if that was my brother-in-law's way of adding some ambiance to the situation. And so we were all talking, laughing, it was all good, and at some point my dad starts to slit his eyes, and I know what is coming next. So he starts really staring at my breasts. Really staring at my breasts. And because I'd spent so much time over those 9 months away from him, really calming my nervous system down, calming my emotions down, and developing a sense of safety around me, I really reacted in a visceral way. I felt disgusted. I felt humiliated. It almost felt like his eyes were searing into my skin. And I actually started to curl up into a ball on the couch because I didn't want him to look at me. But as I started curling up into a ball, bringing my knees up to my chest, he then started looking at my thighs, looking at my ass. And it was very obvious to me. And I had this like out of body experience because I was like, am I here? Are all these people here? Because I had family members and friends just sitting around having a great time laughing as he was obviously ogling me. And I kept thinking to myself, can they see him? Can they see me? Am I really here? Is he really there? And for a moment, I considered that they actually could see him and were still laughing, and that I was so worthless and insignificant that it just didn't matter. Now, you'll have to go and ask them, because to this day, I don't know if they could see how he was leering at me, but I felt horrible. It was like, I can't explain it. In hindsight, my therapist said that's probably the first time you had a genuine reaction to your father being completely inappropriate around you, because you'd been so emotionally numb for so many years, and you'd kind of numbed yourself to how he was treating you, and you'd made all of these behavioral accommodations, and this was the first time you were raw, you were your authentic self, and you were completely disgusted by it. Now, at some point, I got up and excused myself to go change into my layers, but stupidly, I'd packed a bunch of layers for the top, but I'd packed shorts for the bottom, so that wasn't the best choice, actually. But when I came back out into the dining room, living room area, people had dispersed a little bit more, but my sister had given my dad a cup of wine, and he actually spilled it on the carpet. He knocked it over by mistake. And it was like snapping your fingers. I immediately fell back into my old conditioning, got on my knees at my father's feet, and I started scrubbing up his wine. And I remember this sensation of floating outside of myself, watching myself almost become like a servant and just do what needs to be done for him. And I remember thinking to myself, this man has been abusing you all of this time. He just was completely inappropriate and leering at your breasts and your ass and your thighs. He's so disrespectful to you, and here you are cleaning up his mess. And I got the stain up, and then I excused myself to go to bed. I pulled the curtain shut because I was in the office room that my sister had converted into a bedroom for me to sleep by putting an air mattress in the middle of the floor. And I got into the air mattress and I just sobbed. My nervous system was really activated and I wanted to get the hell out of there, but obviously I couldn't. So to calm myself down, I think I binge watched a Harlan Coben TV series, which are never that good. I was self-soothing by watching episode after episode. So I think I stayed up pretty late until I kind of stopped shaking. And the next morning, I heard everyone at the dining table, which was right outside of the office bedroom, and they were all talking, laughing. My dad was out there, my sister, I think her husband, or some family friends, and I was hiding. And this is what I used to do when I was a teenager. And that was me in my 40s, hiding. And in my mind, I thought, well, maybe he'll hurry up and get ready to drive back to Albany. And when I hear that he's preparing to go, I'll come out and I'll say good morning and goodbye. And that'll be that. So I was just there hiding, like hearing their voices. I was also hungry, but I was like, it's worth it to starve so that I don't have to really interact with him. He makes me so uncomfortable. And then at some point I just hear, whoosh, my father opens up the curtain and he just walks into the room. There was no knock. There wasn't any, are you dressed? There was no, are you awake? He just walked in. Mind you, I'm in my 40s. I had just gotten through breast cancer treatment. I could have been in any state of undress, and he treated me like I literally had no right to my privacy. He started initiating this conversation. I think he was calling himself reconciling with me, but I really wasn't responding back. It was kind of like yes, no responses. And I was extremely uncomfortable because I was laying on the air mattress on the floor while he was standing up above looking down at me. Essentially, his eyes looked slit, which that's the telltale look he always gives me when he's like sexually objectifying me. And so I felt like my skin was on fire, and I felt disgusting. I felt repulsed. I didn't want anything to do with him, and I wanted him to get out of the room, but I couldn't just tell him that. I just waited till he kind of stopped trying to engage me and left. And what was interesting is as he walked out of the office room back into the dining room, I heard someone at the table, maybe my elder sister, say, well, we told you to wait till she woke up. And he says, but I'm her father. And just keeps walking. I think I even heard somebody laugh about it after he said it. And it really was at that moment that I realized that my father didn't think I had a right to exist. He doesn't think I have a right to my own identity. I'm just a mere extension of him, even at my age, even after all that I've been through, even after all of the abuse, all of these years. And I realized I was never going to be safe around him. Like maybe going to the birthday party was me testing it out to see after 9 months of temporarily not speaking to him, maybe everything would be fine. And I realized this is never going to be fine. And it's not just my dad. It's the family system that kind of supports him being able to engage in these kind of behaviors with me, seemingly with no objection from anybody else. And so I knew I was actually never going to be safe around these people. So I went out, I pretended everything was fine. I chatted with whoever I could chat with. And then my father, his wife, and my baby bro left to go back to Albany. Notably, my father did not hug me goodbye. Not that I wanted a hug, but I thought it was really fascinating that it didn't matter to him to even give me a hug. Like his behavior is so... It's like he performs as a father. He performs the role, but there's no real emotional connection there. And I sense that he feels that too, because I certainly don't feel any real emotional connection there. And then I took my journal and I went outside to go for a walk. But really, I sat on a bench under a tree and I sobbed. I shook and I sobbed, and I wrote down that I was going to have to go permanently, no contact with my dad. And I just wrote about how heartbroken I was, how disgusted I felt. So I started composing my no contact letter to my family while I was at my sister's house. I debated sending it while I was still there on vacation, but ultimately I decided it would make more sense if I sent it once I left, which I did. And so I sent it to my older sisters. I CC'd my older sister cousins who also grew up with us. And then I CC'd my younger two sisters that were adopted by my dad and his wife after my mom passed away. And in the letter, I detailed what I would and would not do. Basically, that I was never going to be around our father again, that they could let me know when he was on his deathbed and I would come to the hospital. That was the substance of the letter. But I also had some bullet points about, you should not be talking about him around me and triggering me unnecessarily. You should let me know when he's going to be at family events that you're planning so that I can negotiate my safety. I also said if I ever have children, they are under no circumstances allowed to be around him. So like if we're visiting your house and he's going to stop by, he can't do that. And if you ever violate that, I will be no contact with you as well. Like I detailed all of it. The response was mixed. It really wasn't that great. Now, I was made aware that my eldest sister and my sister cousin actually made a trip to visit my father and have a conversation with him about the abuse. They didn't discuss it with me, so I'm actually not privy to what was discussed and what happened as a result of it. My sister said that after they made that trip, she tried to contact me and discuss with me next steps, and that I wasn't calling her back. It's very possible I didn't call her back. I mean, she was defensive in her initial response to the email, so I wouldn't have thought that her calling me was like a friendly phone call. However, in the 2 years since then, she's never once, when she's seen me in person, talked to me about that, which is also mind-boggling to me because I think, why not have a conversation with me when you see me? But she's never done that. The biggest problem that emerged was that they would never tell me when they were planning events if he was going to be there or not. I sort of think they just wanted to leave me hanging in hopes that I would just give up advocating for my own safety and maintaining the boundary that I had set. Didn't pan out that way. If people don't cooperate and collaborate with you for your own safety, then pretty much that means they don't want you around. And I came to accept that over the past roughly 2 years. And gradually I just started standing more and more on my own as one person. I mean, I felt that I had gone through so many trials and tribulations on my own without strong emotional support from my family anyway. And I kept emerging victorious over all of these challenges. And by December 2025, when I decided to post my open letter to my family online detailing my abuse story, it was really a desire to release the shame that I'd carried for so many years. It was an appeal to my family, but I realized actually they're not my audience, that these issues that I've been dealing with are much broader and affect much more people throughout the world. And even if my family, my sisters can't support me fully, my family did not like me posting that letter. So in my next video, I'll talk to you about what happened after I shared my open letter and how my life is now that I've been no contact with my father for almost 2 years.